Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi there. How you doing? I hope you're in good health and secure. Our planet is in a lot of turmoil right now, so all the more reason to focus our energies on our maximal potential, our life-affirming potential in life, in our environments, right? Radiate out Gohonzon, radiate out Buddha-ness, perception, right? So, in that regard, let us continue with the opening of the eyes, a major treatise of Nichiren. And as we've seen so far, and if you're just starting here, it would probably do you well to start in a few videos ago, so you could get into the rhythm of this go-sho. We are focusing on this group of go-shos to demonstrate the difference, the understanding of what is Gohonzon versus what is Mandala, that scroll you see behind me, or partly anyway. Right? Mandala and Gohonzon, not the same thing. In fact, the scroll and mandala is a property, an emergent property of the scroll. The scroll itself isn't actually mandala. It's a conceptual reference of Nichiren's insight into the already existing teachings of Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra. And the conceptual framework of the Lotus Sutra, which is all of Shakyamuni's teaching, what it's all about, in ultimate form, is captured in the story, the teaching of the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo. And that story is delivered in a mental imagery of a ceremony, therefore a mental cognition, perception, experience of something other than the samsaric experience. And that other than is often called the ceremony in the sky. The ceremony in the sky is a very short, what would we call it in Hollywood would be a byline, yeah, of the entirety of the story, which, as you'll recall, the Lotus Sutra enumerates all the various mindsets of humanity in the personages of lay people, bodhisattvas, arhats, so on and so forth, all different stages of understanding and experience of the world, the universe, albeit from an earthly perspective, and then lifts all of those minds into the air to disconnect us from the physical, earthly boundaries of our understanding, right? And at that point, Shakyamuni, or Buddha-ness, delivers this amazing, opulent perception called the treasure tower, right? And invites us all to join in that mindset of wonder and amazement of the true nature of all phenomena, while at the same time enjoining us by saying, Buddha isn't something I created as a man. Buddha-ness, this opulent treasure tower of mind, which we all are, has always been a feature of the engine of life. Buddha-ness is just your experience of it. And so what Nichiren identifies is this whole ceremony from earthly attachment to lofty mind of experience, this aha That's Gohonzon. Gohonzon is that paradigm shift from earthly attachments, misery, all the fallout from attachment, from trying to drag the past along with us, to the experience of moment-to-moment being into the next moment, our momentum, real life, living fully. That shift is Gohonzon, right? Like the opening of an eye. We have all kinds of imagery in our minds, but when we open our eyes, we see truth. We see what actually is in language, in imagery, right? We know our eyes, our human eyes, are actually quite limited in what they see, but we're not talking about that human eye. We're talking about the Buddha eye, the eye that sees, penetrates, and understands moment to moment the nature of all phenomena. Therefore, the opening of the eye, Gosho. And so this mandala, the scroll, the mandala is the aspect of this scroll that Nichiren is capturing for us to open this eye, go penetrate Gohonzon in order to experience Buddha. Now we have all our ducks in a row. And so 90% of Nichiren's dialogue is about exploring this path, this Gohonzon to enlightenment. And this mandala, this scroll that he created for the mandala experience, is his focused tool from his distilling of the understanding of the Lotus Sutra and Shakyamuni's teachings into the ultimate distraction, if you will. Because we are samsaric beings, we control ourselves with attachment and distraction. So here's a distraction that will break you loose, as the story of the Lotus Sutra is, to shift your mind from physicality to experience, mental cognition, perspective, all of the various verbs we have for this opening of the eye, the opening of Gohonzon. So that we can then settle into a habit, if you will, of clarity. The habit isn't even necessary. Once you're in clarity, everything's clear. There's no... The habit is part of Gohonzon. It's part of the shift. It's part of the leaving samsaric bondage to be liberated by constant truth, momentum into the next. Yes? All right. With this body of mind, Nichiren continues, I have fulfilled the prophecies of the sutra. In other words, I am embodying the very teachings, the very stories of the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. The more the government authorities rage against me, the greater is my joy. They just prove me out more and more. Right? In previous letters, we've read how he's had some doubt. Nichiren has. But the more he gets assailed by the elite and the government and so forth, the more he sees his life embodying exactly what was in the teachings themselves, that this would occur. It's inevitable. And therefore, he's gaining more and more confidence that, well, I must be pursuing this correctly, because here it is. What I'm incurring is exactly what's expected, right? It's like a hypothesis in science, and then experimentation proves it out. For instance, there are certain Hinayana bodhisattvas not yet freed from delusion who draw negative karma to themselves by their own compassionate vow. People create their own misery. It's not imposed upon them by their environment. They impose it upon themselves because they don't understand. They're not practicing correctly. If they see that their father and mother have fallen into hell and are suffering greatly, they will deliberately create the appropriate karma in hopes that they too fall into hell and share in and take their suffering upon themselves. That immolation, that's a very religious way of thinking, right? Thus, suffering is a joy to them. Boy, don't we see that in the world everywhere. Oftentimes, we share stories of our siblings and our parents and so forth, and we struggle because we see them suffering. And we tell them, well, don't do that. Well, don't do this. Well, you should do this for yourself. It seems as though they enjoy their misery. How often do we see that? How often do we talk about these kind of things as we try to help our family members and others that we know? They just seem to enjoy their misery. But that's an ugly thing to say. Don't say that. But it's the truth. So how do we escape that? It's one thing to call it out. But how do you actually help others as well as ourselves escape that pattern? That's the actual function of Buddhism, yes? All the words in the world won't make a difference. It happens in the mind, and the mind must be changed. And that change is Gohonzon. It's the only way. It is the same with me in fulfilling the prophecies. Though at present I must face trials that I can scarcely endure, I rejoice when I think that in the future I will escape being, moment to moment, reborn in the next moment into lower realms. Evil paths, it says. But those realms where we create our own suffering are the evil paths. Why are they evil? Because they prohibit us from reaching Gohonzon and opening our Buddha mind of moment-to-moment momentum experience. Yes? And yet the people doubt me. And I too have doubts about myself. This is Nichiren sharing with you and I here. The nature of the practice. Nichiren himself. This ain't easy. Our minds are tremendously glued to our possessions, right? Our ownership. That light's a little too bright. Got a shining head. Don't need a shining head. All right. Why do these gods not assist me? Heavenly gods and other guardian deities made their vow before the Buddha. Even if the votary of the Lotus Sutra were an ape rather than a man, they should address him as the votary of the Lotus Sutra and rush forward to fulfill the vow they made before the Buddha. Right? Because in the teachings, not only does it explicate or explain the fallout of being a votary of the Lotus Sutra and what Nichiren is himself identifying as his own experience. Therefore, he knows he's exemplifying the correct path of Buddhism. But it also says that as the votary of the Lotus Sutra, I should incur all these protections, right? If one is true, the other must be. So, does their failure to do so mean that I am in fact not the votary of the Lotus Sutra? This doubt lies at the heart of this piece I am writing. What does that mean? He's saying, look, I know this isn't easy. I myself, as convinced as I am that I'm doing this correctly, because so much of the teachings validates that I'm doing this correctly, I'm still a human being. And I still have these feelings sometimes. Why am I struggling so hard? Have you had that feeling? I know in my practice, I've backed off tremendously in the past, thinking, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just entertaining myself. This is just another blah, blah, blah. Right? Scary to think that I've thought that way. But hey, that's what we do. Especially when we're struggling and we don't seem to be getting that benefit we're so accustomed to getting. Right? Things aren't changing. Gosh, my life. And then later on you think, well, it has changed a lot, actually. I seem to be stuck. Well, you need to change. If you don't like where you are today, what's gotten you where you are today isn't going to change the future. Right? What's that saying? Insanity is defined by doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But isn't that what I'm supposed to be doing? Nah. If you read carefully, you study carefully Buddhism, you'll understand that there's always more that you can do, that you should do. So if you feel stuck, and this is what Nichiren is identifying here, if you feel stuck, you're not opening that Buddha eye, you're not penetrating your Gohonzon mind, because you've ceased growing. And therefore, you have to recommit. You have to re-enliven your Buddha-ness. And so it requires more effort. It's going to require that you assist others. And if you're paying attention, and I remember back many years, there were people who were curious around me, and I avoided them. Yeah, it's true. I got tired of talking about it. I got tired of people challenging what I was saying. And I was avoiding my own growth. So let's see what Nichiren says about it. And because it is the most important concern of my entire life, I will raise it again and again here and emphasize it more than ever before I attempt to answer it. So why is this an important treatise? Because he's talking to you and me about our actual practice of Myoho and Geikyo. What's going on in our samsaric mind? What realms are being centered upon that are prohibiting our growth? Because the practice is immediate. So if we're not experiencing the reward body, what's missing? It's not missing from the practice. It's missing from our practice. Prince Chicha, in his heart, had promised to give the Lord of Su the precious royal sword that he wore. Therefore, when he later found that the Lord of Su had died, he placed the sword on his grave. Wang Xiao, having drunk water from a river, carefully tossed a gold coin into the water as payment. Hong Yen, finding that his lord had been killed, cut open his stomach and inserted his lord's liver in it before he died. These are all stories of folklore and history, manufactured histories, whatever. They're tales all the way from China and others, right? He's using the stories of the day to instruct his fellow medieval Japanese followers, friends. These were worthy men, and they knew how to repay a debt of gratitude, right? We've read a whole Gosho on repaying the debt of gratitude. How much more so, then, should this be the case with great sages like Shariputra and Mahakashyapa, who observed every one of the 250 precepts and the 3,000 rules of conduct and had cut themselves off from the illusions of thought and desire and separated themselves from the threefold world? They are worthy to be leaders of Brahma, Shakra, and other heavenly gods in the eyes of all living beings. During the first 40 and more years of the Buddha's preaching, Shakyamuni Buddha's preaching, these men were disliked and pushed aside with admonitions that could never attain Buddhahood. Right? For all of their skill and all of their knowledge and all their commitment, Shakyamuni was telling them, you'll never attain Buddhahood. My goodness, what an admonition, yeah? Remember, though, that these people aren't actually people. They're personages. They're mindsets. But when they had tasted the medicine of immortality in the Lotus Sutra, immortality? Cultural bias in these words, yeah. Rather than immortality, it should say timelessness. But, I've talked about time a lot, and it can get confusing. But immortality is no less confusing. I can live forever. No. Buddha-ness, the engine of life, that has no time. We create time. That's why when we're in Buddha-ness, we experience momentum. Enough on that. They were like scorched seeds that sprout, a shattered rock joined together again, or withered trees that put forth blossoms and fruit. Though the Lotus Sutra, it was revealed, or through the Lotus Sutra, it was revealed that they would attain Buddhahood after all, though they had yet to enter the 8 phases of a Buddha's existence. 8 phases. There's another thing to look up. Buddhism dissects the hell out of our mentations, if you will. But all of it is to bring us back to center, to say, look, the engine of life is happening. Why are you not experiencing it fully? There's nobody holding your mind down except you. Learn how to release your mind of this bondage and be in it fully. That's Buddhism. That's Myoho Renge Kyo. How then can they not do something to repay the profound debt of gratitude they owe to the sutra? Right? Oh, that's how amazing. I didn't tell this to myself. Somebody had to tell me. And I should experience gratitude for having been told, for having been shown, for having this eye opened. Wow. Thank you. Right? If they do not do so, they will show themselves to be inferior to the worthy men I mentioned earlier, and, in fact, be no more than animals who have no understanding of a debt of gratitude. You can't just continuously get, and not be humbled by the getting. Right? And this is what happens in our practice. We become accustomed to the world and our lives continuously ameliorating or breaking through obstacles and wow, and our life changing, so that when suddenly an obstacle or several obstacles begin to weigh us down, like, gosh, why can't I change this? Why is this still happening? We start to give up. We start to forget how much we've changed in order to get there, to this point. That this is really an opportunity for an even more exponential change, but we're tired. I just can't do it. Right? And what is that really? I'll just lean back on my little lazy boy couch of what I've accomplished thus far, and I'll be cool with that. That's just the same behavior as usual of the samsaric mind, relying on its what? Possessions, which is the primary illusion. We possess nothing. We experience everything. The moment we turn experience into possession, we're losing it. It's gone. It's the past. You're not progressing. So how can you possibly feel alive? This is the question Buddhism asks. The turtle that Mao Pao saved did not forget to repay the kindness of the past. The great fish of Kung Ming Pond, in order to repay the man who had saved his life, presented a bright jewel in the middle of the night. Even these creatures understood how to repay a debt of gratitude, so why shouldn't men who are great sages? See, he's not just talking about the average person. He's talking about himself as well. But he's saying in history, those who achieve great heights, your practice, when you achieve great, you may take it for granted because you're accustomed to it, but you've achieved great things in your practice. Why should you then sit back? Why shouldn't you continue to be humbled by this amazing Buddha eye? Why would you back off and go, I'm tired? You, a great sage, more guilty, if you want to use the word guilt, more well, it's a greater obstacle, isn't it? More selfish than an ordinary ignorant person. You know what you're not doing. The ignorant person doesn't know. So your offense is greater. Nichiren is saying this to you and I, but he's saying it to himself as well. He's saying, look, same here. I'm not so special, but what makes me special is something I need to have deeply profound gratitude for, and that gratitude motivates me more to keep going. Momentum. The Venerable Ananda was the second son of King Duryodhana, and the Venerable Rahula was the grandson of King Suddhodana. Both men were born into very distinguished families and even attained arhatship. However, they were declared to be unable to attain Buddhahood by their own relative, Shakyamuni. And yet, during their 8-year assembly at Eagle Peak, when the Lotus Sutra was preached, it was revealed that they would become Buddhas with names such as the Thus Come One Mountain Sea Wisdom, Unrestricted Power King, and the Thus Come One Stepping on 7 Treasure Flowers. No matter how distinguished their families or what great sages they were, if it had not been for the revelation in the Lotus Sutra, who would have paid them any respect? King Che of Xia dynasty and King Chao of the Yin dynasty were lords of an army of 10,000 chariots and commanded the allegiance of the entire populace of their kingdoms. Right? Great persons. But because they governed despotically and brought about the downfall of their dynasties, people speak of Qi and Chao as the epitome of evil men. They became arrogant, full of themselves. They stopped growing. They stopped having that aim into the future and started being in the past, right? Because being just now just what has been done in the last moment is wrong direction. Even a person of low station or a leper, if he is likened to Che and Chow, will be enraged at the insult. If it had not been for the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge-kyo, then who would have ever heard of the 1,200 voice hearers and the countless other voice hearers who would attain Buddhahood through the sutra, and who would have listened to their voices? No one would have read the Buddhist sutras compiled by the 1,000 voice hearers, nor would there have been any paintings or wooden statues of them set up and worshipped, which is, as we know, isn't the correct practice of Buddhism. Nonetheless, their respect was maintained, right? It is entirely due to the power of the Lotus Sutra that these arhats were revered and followed. If these voice hearers were to separate themselves from the Lotus Sutra, they would be like fish without water, a monkey without a tree, a baby without the breast, or people without a sovereign. How then can they abandon the votary of the Lotus Sutra? Well, if they don't understand the debt they have to the ultimate teaching, then why would they respect the person who stands and promotes and propagates that very teaching? Right? But this is what Nichiren is pointing out. If you don't understand where the truth of your life is, then why would you respect anyone propagating it? Right? This is why when we teach others who don't know anything about Buddhism, all of the fancy words and stories just fall on deaf ears. They don't know what they're hearing, why they're hearing it. They're free to imagine whatever fanciful stories they want. That's why the first thing we do is chant. Why do we chant? Not to teach them how to chant, but to experience the Buddha eye, to open the Gohonzon mind. With or without a mandala, right? If we can, we bring them to our home and we show them mandala so that their senses, their samsaric senses, can begin to adjust on being focused so that when they chant, boom, it happens immediately. They don't know what it is, but they know they've experienced something. And just that little foot in the door, in their mental door, then when we talk about these other concepts of Buddhism, they begin to gel. They begin to make sense because they're all in reference to Treasure Tower, Gohonzon. The perception, the life-changing, the observation of the life-changing perception, Buddha-ness, starts to function. The eye is opened. It is entirely due to the power of the Lotus Sutra that these arhats are revered and followed. If the voice fearers were to separate themselves from the Lotus Sutra, they'd be like fish without water, blah, blah, blah. How can they abandon? Through the sutras that precede the Lotus Sutras, the sutras that came before Myoho Renge-kyo, the voice hearers have acquired the heavenly eye and the wisdom eye in addition to their physical eyes. Now, he's not talking about the Buddha eye. He's saying that as students, when we study, whether it's wordworking or cooking or math or whatever, a window in our mind is opened, a window of understanding, of comprehension, right? You can watch somebody do something and be mystified by it. Wow, how did he do that? How did she do? How did you make such a perfect loaf of bread? How did you, right? But then you watch a few YouTube videos, or you, better yet, meet someone and they invite you into their process, that's a different aspect of mind that now is putting together things you hadn't known before to even look for, to even see. The wisdom eye, the collection of knowledge, yeah? So what we do when we chant is we open the Buddha eye. We lift the Gohonzon eyelid off of the Buddha eye. And that what kind of wisdom is that? Buddha wisdom. See, all of these terms aren't introduced just to be able to talk fancily. They all get in line with this perfect understanding, yeah? Through the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo, they have been provided with the Dharma eye and the Buddha eye. Their eyesight can penetrate any of the worlds in the 10 directions. How then could they fail to see me, the votary of the Lotus Sutra, right here in the Saha world? Nichiren's whining a little bit, but he's doing so in order for you and I to understand that even at the exalted, if you will, level of Nichiren's scholarship and his understanding of the teachings, he too experiences these moments of doubt, these moments of fear. Yeah? Even if I were an evil man who had said a word or two against them, or even if I cursed and reviled the voice hearers for a year or two, a kalpa or two, or 100, 1,000, 10,000, or 1,000,000 kalpas, and went so far as to threaten to take up swords and staves against them, so long as I maintain my strong resolve in the Myoho Renge Kyo and act as its votary, then they should never abandon me. Now, that's a very important statement. There are some groups and sects out there, they have special names for people who back off of their practice. And they really castigate them. Right? I'm sure you've witnessed this. If you're new to Buddhism, thankfully, you probably haven't seen that. But there are groups and organizations out there, sanctioned and lay organizations and whatever, that if you walk away from your practice, oh man, they want to make it hard for you. They want to take away your mandala like it's theirs to take. It's so ridiculous. These organizations, they want their power. They're authoritarian. Listen, the only organization you need to worry about is your mind. Grab that, grasp that, grapple with that. Everything else is a distraction. Anyway, why do I bring this up? Because Nichiren is saying, even if I, Nichiren, now understand, he's not saying this as just, what do you call it? Just, it's a certain kind of speech. Anyway, he's not trying to just manipulate your thinking. He's saying, I've proven I'm a votary of the Lotus Sutra. And even if in my low moments, I get angry that the gods aren't protect me, and I look into the air and I cuss them out. Screw you. You're not helping me. You're saying, even if I did that for thousands of years, as long as I keep chanting, I keep talking up, spreading, assisting others to reach for this Buddha-ness, even in the midst of my own doubt, if I keep my strong resolve, my confidence in my heart that it is attainable, this Buddha-ness, it's just there. And my anger and my spewing out, that's private moments, that's just me wrestling with myself. Even then, Shouldn't matter. As long as I keep my confidence and resolve in my own enlightenment, in Myoho Renge Kyo, nothing changes. I can have my human moments. I can regret them. But all the while, I have to stay focused. A child may curse his parents, but would the parents for that reason cast him aside? You see? The young owls eat their mother, but the mother nevertheless does not abandon them. The Hakkei beast kills its father, but the father does nothing to prevent this. If even animals behave like this, then why should great sages abandon the votary of the Lotus Sutra? It's like he's having a hard talk with himself. Right? He's saying, I'm doing all this work. I'm mirroring exactly what Buddhism says. I'm doing the job. I really believe it. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I feel it. I experience Buddha-ness. Why am I being sent to Sado Island? Why is my life being threatened? Wah, wah, wah. He's whining. Right? His mind is flip-flopping. Buddha-ness, wah. Not having a good time. He's castigating himself, and he's saying, human beings, we do stupid shit all the time. Animals do it, and they're not abandoned. Why should I feel abandoned? It looks like I'm being abandoned. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's part of my being a teacher. Maybe this abandonment isn't about me. Wah. Maybe it's about others seeing how strong this practice is. That even with all of these attacks and obstacles on me, Buddha-ness isn't affected. My life, my joy, my magnificent moment-to-moment instantiation of life is unaffected. Holy crap, I am the votary of the Lotus Sutra. This is part of the teaching. Remember I said radiating out into your environment? And Nichiren is talking about this. That's why he said earlier, it's like, the more they attack me, the more my joy. Because I understand I am being a figurehead for everyone else to become resolved, inspired. Look at all the shit they're throwing at Nichiren, and he just keeps chanting. Man, this must really work. You see the perspective change? Poor me, me, me. Oh, it ain't about me. Well, it is and it isn't. It's about my Buddha-ness being unaffected by my environment's mirroring ignorance. None of it changes my Buddha-ness. What an incredible deep dive into this, yeah? Opening of the eye. The four great voice hearers in the passage that expresses their understanding proclaim, quote, now we have become voice hearers in the truth, right? Worlds of learning. For we take the voice of the Buddha way and cause it to be heard by all. Now we have become true arhats. For anywhere, everywhere among the heavenly and human beings, devils and Brahmins of the various worlds, we deserve to receive offerings. Yikes. You see the ego still there in the Hinayana? We deserve offerings. No, you don't deserve offerings. Buddha-ness deserves support, offerings, right? Nichiren's always, we've heard it countless times. Thank you for all your gifts. They're going straight to Gohonzon. The world-honored one in his great mercy makes use of a rare thing in pity and compassion, teaching and converting, bringing benefit to us. There it is. Remember, I started out, I think it was in the last video, talking about compassion as the great thing we develop, because it's not about you and I, it's about our environment, which is you and I. We just are stubborn about understanding that. In numberless millions of kalpas, who could ever repay him? Though we offer him our hands and feet, bow our heads in respectful obeisance, and present all manner of offerings, none of us could repay Shakyamuni, or more accurately, his Buddha-ness. Though we lift him off the crown of our heads, bear him on our two shoulders, for kalpas numerous as the Ganges sands, reverence him with all our hearts, though we come with delicate foods and countless jeweled robes, with articles of bedding, various kinds of potions and medicines, with oxhead sandalwood and all kinds of rare gems, construct memorial towers and spread the ground with jeweled robes, though we were to do all this by way of offering for kalpas numerous as Ganges sands, still we could not repay him. In other words, of all the precious physical aspects of the universe, it is our mind, our Gohonzon mind, our Buddha eye, is so far beyond those meager offerings. Why? Because in truth, they are the symbols of offerings to samsaric men and women. But in the great experience of all phenomena, what offerings are there? There is only existence. There are offerings, but offerings are just collections of things that already exist. And so our compassion wells up for people who are so attached to anything, to think, to consider for themselves that they are offering something, indicates their lack of wisdom. Their lack of understanding that all of this isn't necessary. Be with into the next moment. Be the momentum of life itself. What offerings could there be to that other than your full attention? Over and over again, it's your attitude and your intent. Keep this full attention on Buddha-ness, on the engine of life. And everything else is just the play. You don't need to stress about any of it. Whatever happens, explosions, gifts, ice cream, it's all there to be experienced, witnessed, enjoyed, sorrowed. Why bring these things upon yourselves as though you own them? They're simply happening. Have compassion for happenings that seem to incur pain, or those that would be attached and therefore bring pain about where it needn't be. Oh, don't do that. Like a parent sees a child screwing up. No, don't stick the paperclip in the electrical outlet. Don't do that. Zap. Right? In the various sutras preached during the earlier period of the Buddha's teaching life, which have been compared to the first four flavors, the voice hearers are depicted on countless occasions as being subjected to all kinds of abuse and shamed before the great assembly of human and heavenly beings. Thus we are told that the sound of the venerable Mahakashyapa's weeping and wailing echoed throughout the major world system. That the venerable Subhuti was so dumbfounded that he almost went off and left the alms bowl he had been carrying, that Shariputra spat out the food he was eating, and that Purna was berated for being the kind who would put filth in a precious jar. Right? It's not just Nichiren. Anyone at any level of practice is going to incur resistance. Resistance of what? Samsara, possession, power, authority. When the World Honored One was at Deer Park, he extolled the Agama Sutras and enjoined his disciples to rely on the 250 precepts as their teacher, warmly praising those who did so. And yet, before long, as we've seen, he turned about and began condemning such men. It wasn't because he reversed what he taught them. It was because what he taught them to do was to develop a dignity about their lives, which they betrayed. They started giving themselves a pat on the back just for doing some following a rule. No, they weren't getting it. He is guilty, we would have to say, of making two different and completely contradictory pronouncements. Right? This is a theme in the history of Buddhism. It's a misunderstood theme, but there it is, yeah? We will continue, because I fear I'm getting long in the tooth here. Thus, for example, the World Honored One cursed Devadatta, saying, "You are a fool who licks the spit of others." Tough love, huh? That's Shakyamuni, a quote, we're told. But you could see it. You could see somebody, when you teach somebody, you're trying to teach somebody a precious piece of knowledge about anything, whatever it is, and then they act on your words as though it was the authority given to them to do something incredibly stupid. How upset does that make you? And parents out there, do you know what I'm talking about? Friends, right? Try to teach your little brother or your little sister that this is how you do this. And then they do something and you go, "What the hell are you doing?" "Well, you told me." Right? We constantly forget that we offer words based on our understanding of them. We hardly ever understand the understanding of others and find words to meet their understanding. Once again, I will close with this thought. Keep this in mind always. When you speak to others about Buddhism, always, always begin. Always, I'll say it 3 times, begin with Daimoku. It's an equalizer. It doesn't make your mind exactly like theirs in samsara, but what it does do is open their samsaric mind to hear the words that come out of your mouth with understanding that they need in order to locate their insights. You don't know what those are. And so you can throw words at them all day long, thinking you have given them enough to guide them, but not so, until their mind is opened to seek the meaning in the words they're reading, they're hearing from you, in a way that affects their understanding of the world, their realms. Remember, Buddhahood is something we individually find, achieve, attain within our sphere of momentum, our karmic freight train. We have boxcars and boxcars of karma manifesting constantly, moment to moment to moment. What is the likelihood that what you're manifesting in a particular moment is exactly the same as what somebody else is manifesting in that moment? Not very good. But by opening the Gohonzon door, so that the Buddha eye can have a peek, a lot more similarity, a lot more congruency occurs, that even though our experiences are different, we move toward the same goal. Always chant when you begin, before you begin, and when you close, so that the reminder is there. Oh yeah, when you're reviewing this stuff, replaying it in your mind, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay. Then at the next time you meet, you'll get much better questions. But don't be inspired and think you can just start blah, 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 blah. Daimoku. Chant. Okay, now whatever comes out of my mouth, even though I may not know what I'm about to say, it's just like I do these videos. I don't script them. I don't know what I'm going to say. But my confidence is high that if I start with Daimoku, when I start with a Gongyo, I address you respectfully, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, that you will hear in my actions, my words, my attempts, whatever it is you need to hear. My confidence is that you're on your way to Buddhahood, that you're going to instantiate the Buddha eye. I can't do it for you. All I can do is support your effort. And this is what we do. This is Bodhisattva work. So like, subscribe to do this Bodhisattva work. Help others locate this teaching, yeah? And for that, how can I express Namo Myoho Renge Kyo? It's not my gratitude you seek. Congratulations to you, to your efforts. Continue, please. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Like, subscribe, buy ebooks off threefoldlotus.com. Go there, download all the free info. Get print books if you prefer them. I do, but many of you don't. So get yourself a correct mandala. And just keep practicing. Be convinced. Be assured. Be confident. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Buddha-ness. Awaken now. Be here now. I am in Buddha. I am Buddha. I am being Buddha. This moment into the next. And I'll see you in the next one. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Take care of your health. Bye for now.